this moment of prayer, again, placing ourselves in the presence of God, and today, in a very special way, rejoicing in our hearts with the joy of Sunday, right? I don't know if you knew, dear missionaries, that every Sunday should be lived with the same joy as the Easter Sunday. And that is why actually in the church, whenever there is a special solemnity or a special feast that falls on a Sunday, it always passes to another day. It's always moved either to the following Monday or to another day, because nothing can be greater than the joy of the resurrection. And every Sunday is an Easter Sunday. And another interesting piece of information for you just to know is that actually during Lent, I don't know if you have counted the numbers of days that Lent is supposed to have. We all know that it's 40 days. But in reality, if you actually count them, it's more than 40. And this is because Sundays are not included in those 40 days. So this is just for you to know today that it's Sunday, that we can live this feast day with that joy of the resurrection, with that joy and with that certainty that St. Paul had, right? If Jesus had not risen, our faith would be totally vain. Like, why would we entrust our lives to someone that was just a good guy, right? After all, there's many good guys in the world. Thank God there's many, right? And there's many people that are very good preachers, just as Jesus was. Maybe not as good, right? But at least that they have a lot of followers. We do know it. In Instagram, we see all these famous people that are influencers and bloggers, etc. So we need someone that is more than just a good guy, and that someone would have to defeat death to prove that he is more than just a good guy, and that is Jesus Christ, right? He is the only human person that has been risen from the dead. So we rejoice with him today. And today we, as we enter into this moment of prayer, I will read the passage of the gospel. The passage is pretty long, but I'm going to read just the first part, which is actually like the part that has to be read during the masses. The following parts could be omitted if the priest decides so. So the gospel is in Matthew 13 verses 24 through 43. Jesus proposed another parable to the crowds, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat, and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from?' He answered, 'An enemy has done this.' His slaves said to him, 'Do you want us to go and pull them up?' He replied, 'No. If you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at harvest time, I will say to the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" The gospel then continues with the parable of the mustard seed, and then with the parable of the yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of wheat flour, right? So in general, this gospel passage is talking to us a lot about the humility of the kingdom of Christ, right? And in this parable that I just read, we can see the humility of Jesus that doesn't allow to be stained, if we could say it that way, with all the mess of humanity, right? He comes into our hearts, and the seed of his love is sowed in our hearts, and it starts to grow. And he is so humble that he knows that our human frailty and our sinfulness, our superficiality, or maybe the temptations of the world or of the devil can also sow their seed in our hearts. And in his humility, he allows his seed to grow along with the seed of that worldliness and that sinfulness. And sometimes, I am sure you have also experienced it. When I was your age, many times I found myself praying and asking God, why don't you just take away my freedom? Because it is because of my freedom that I am offending you, right? I wish I had the strength to be more faithful to you, Jesus. But then I go to the party and I just fall in the temptation, right? Because all my friends are doing these things, so I'm not gonna be the freak one that is like the nerdy or the little nun, right? That has to behave well because so maybe there's a lot of pressure in the world we live in, or maybe it's not necessarily external pressure, but the pressure of our weakness, that we just think, I don't have the strength, I will just give in this time and tomorrow I go to confession, right? And then we feel so miserable and so repentant, and so we find ourselves telling Jesus, why don't you just take away my freedom? That way I would never offend you. That way I would be like a slave of your love, and I prefer that, right? But if you think about it, dear missionaries, that's a prayer of lazy people, of lazy men and women that don't want to have that battle, right? That want life to be easy, that we prefer to just God do his work in our hearts. And yeah, indeed, that would be much easier, but that's not our call. Jesus wants us to be faithful with love, out of love and not out of the easy way. So love is a challenge, and love has its ups and downs. Love is something that we have to freely embrace every single day. And Jesus is so humble. He accepts it, right? And he makes a deal with us, even though he knows that we will break that deal. It's like when you sign a contract with someone. Let's say that you are, I don't know, you're trying to make business with someone, right? So you try to say, okay, what can be an agreement that he will think that will be convenient for him, but that can also be convenient for me. So you try to reach a middle point where there's commitment on both parts, right? And both parts commit. And if you don't follow whatever was said in the contract, then the other person has the right to maybe sue you or break the contract and stay with all the profit or whatever, right? This is not the case of Jesus. Jesus signs the contract even though he already knows that he will lose, and that he will be betrayed, and that he will be let down, and that his expectations will not be met, right? So in that humility today, we can do this prayer and contemplate how in our hearts the wheat grows along with the weed. Sorry for my bad pronunciation, but I know you know what I'm talking about, right? We have the weeds and the wheat, and God is so humble. And with this, I connect this passage that we are reading with another passage of the Song of Songs. I think I mentioned it in another prayer that we did together, but if not, or if yes, please forgive me if I'm repeating. But the Song of Songs is my favorite book of the whole Bible, right? Along with the Gospels, the Song of Songs, I read it and I'm like, wow, this is like honeymoon, right? For me as a consecrated woman. And one of my favorite parts is at the beginning. Well, just to put you in context, if you have never read the Song of Songs, it is all these poems, and it's like a canticle of love between a bride and a bridegroom, right? And it's in the Bible because it represents the loving dialogue that goes on between the soul and God, right? And how God pursues our soul and how he falls in love with us. So it's this dialogue that goes back and forth of a couple that loves each other, right? They love each other, so they just praise each other's beauty. And at the beginning, in the first chapter, the bride tells her friends, right, that are listening the poem of love. She tells them, I am dark but beautiful, right, because I've been in the sun and I didn't take care of my own vineyard. And well, she starts this beautiful poem. And then Pope Benedict, when he was a cardinal before being elected a pope, he did a beautiful reflection in a, like he wrote, it was just like a reflection that he wrote as a cardinal, where he says, he uses this black and beautiful as an analogy of the mystery of Peter, right, of the Pope. You know how Jesus told Peter, you are the rock. And in case you didn't know, the word Peter actually means rock, and it's pronounced in the same way. And actually, for example, in Spanish it doesn't apply either. In Spanish, the name Peter is Pedro, but the name rock, the word rock, is piedra. Pedro, piedra. So they are similar, but well, in Hebrew they were the same word, right? It's like, for example, grace. It's a virtue, but it's at the same time the name of a person. So in Hebrew, the word Peter was the same for applying it to a rock or to the proper name of a person. And it is a mystery how Jesus at some point tells Peter, you are this rock of scandal. You are a scandal for me. Like, stay away from me, Satan, because you are just this rock of scandal. I think that's the right translation. Please bear with my bad English, missionaries, right? But then at the same time, like in another moment, Jesus tells Peter, you are the rock upon which I will build my church, right? And he calls him the stronghold, like that rock, that wherever that rock is, Jesus will be. And whatever you bound in heaven, on earth, I will bound in heaven, right? And whatever you bound on earth or unbound, I will unbound it, right? So he gives Peter that certainty that you will be that rock. So rock could be understood in those two senses of a rock that scandalizes and that is like the sign of sinfulness, but at the same time the rock upon which we can build our faith. And here we go back to that duality of the bride of I am dark but beautiful. And if we apply it to our own life, we are not popes, right? But we also experience that duality, that contradiction of how come that I am a source of sinfulness and at the same time God abides in me. God abides in me and he loves me even though I am dark. I am dark but beautiful. And pray about this, dear missionaries. Pray about how you are beautiful not because of your talents. You are actually beautiful just because God has looked into your eyes with eyes of love. He fell in love with you. And because of the way he looks at you, only because of that, now you are valuable. It's as if, imagine, I don't know, who is the most famous singer right now? Maroon 5, or I mean, maybe he's a little bit old. You know better than I, right? But just think of a very famous artist. Maluma, that's one, I know. So imagine that, I don't know, you have this painting, right? And it's a painting that I did, and I'm not an artist at all, so it's just like Fruit Loops with a glass of milk, right? Nobody would pay a penny for that painting, right? Like the Fruit Loops, who cares about Fruit Loops? But then imagine that the singer, Maluma, comes and looks at that and he says, this is so cool. And imagine that suddenly he does an Instagram story with the painting. Look at this, like this is so awesome. Oh my gosh, it would raise its price you could sell it for millions of dollars just because this guy appreciated it and did an Instagram story with your Fruit Loops painting, right? So in the same way, just because God looked at you with so much love, your price as a human person rises up to heaven. Like, it just blows your mind because now you have an infinite price where the gaze of God sanctified you and he gave you that dignity where you can say, I am the beloved of God. He died for me. He shed his life. He not only did an Instagram story with me, he shed his own life with me, even though I have all these weeds that are growing in my heart. And he saw them. He is not naive. He sees everything what is inside of my heart, and still he dares to love me. And he wants to abide in my heart. That's like mind-blowing. Meditate about this reality, dear missionaries, and meditate this reality throughout your whole year, because you will see in your year, you will get to know yourself a lot, and you will get to know parts of your heart that you wish you didn't know. Because you will get to know your limits. You will get to know a lot of your frailties, a lot of your hypocrisy. Like what you already know is nothing compared to what you will know. And you will also get to know beautiful parts of your heart. But then you will realize, I am loved not because I am so cool and I sing or I dance or I prepare this awesome talk. No, I am valuable just because God loved me. Because then you put in a balance, right? I have all these weed, all these defects, but I have also all this wheat that is growing. And I am not loved just because of my wheat. I am loved because God decided to love me. Period. That's all what makes me valuable. And that will be my stronghold to discover my identity, right? If it helps you, I would recommend you to finish this meditation with the song of You Say. I forgot in this moment the name of the singer. You know it, I'm sure. If you Google it, You Say, right? And there's a part of the song that says, in you I find my identity, right? And I would add to it, in the way you look at me, I find my true identity. I am who I am before the eyes of God and before no one else's eyes. Doesn't matter what my mom thinks of me, doesn't matter what my best friend or my boyfriend or all my followers in Instagram think of me. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters and that reveals to me who I truly am is who I am before the eyes of God. And today, allow yourself to be contemplated by Jesus. We have seen also this dynamic of prayer, and I think I've been very insistent in this, but prayer is a mutual contemplation. Allow Jesus to contemplate you and to tell you, as he tells the bride in the Song of Songs, you are beautiful, my beloved. There is no defect in you. And it's not that he is naive. It's not that he is blind and he can't see your defects. Of course he sees your defects. But when a person is in love, the defects are overshadowed. They don't matter that much, right? So allow yourself to be contemplated by him. And if you need more time than half an hour, feel free to do so, right? If you feel that desire, it is because God wants to stay longer with you. Allow him to stay longer with you and to just look at you and feel that. Look at Jesus like sighing of love when he looks at you, and how he is aware of that wheat and that weed, and he doesn't mind, and he tells you, don't worry, be patient with yourself. I love you just as you are.